Northside Open Invitational. It is going to be a grand day. What do we got?
Hey, welcome back. It is going to be a grand day. This is the second annual, and as you can see, we've got all kinds of good treats in the morning and gifts at the end of the day and some prizes for a whole bunch of things. And my missus made us a bunch of chili for the end of the day, but we also had a stop at Cory's place where we got some burgers and, well, hell, it's just going to be a great day.
We'll hit the Brookside loop first. We'll take a couple little breaks on the way through. We start it and finish it right here. Now it's about 10K.
Initial brief's done, and we're going to roll out. So we're going to do a loop here on the Brookside loop before we head over to McLoud Hill, Cloudy Road, and a whole bunch of trails that we have a whole bunch of names for, and most of which you've seen, some you've not. Now, unlike race videos, it's a bit more difficult to tell the story, because this is 3.5 hours of video that I've tried to condense down, and ultimately it'll probably be most interesting to the people that were there and their spouses that are going to have to suffer through watching this. Okay, so what is the story? The story is that this is an annual trip. We did it last year and we did it again this year, so I'm going to say that's proof of concept and it's a thing now. And what we do is we put out a general invite because it's an open invitational. Show up if you want to show up. If you hear about it, you don't need a direct invite from anyone that's part of the organizing of it. Just show up and come ride. The more the merrier. But what it did was bring in what I'm going to call the three clans. The Moncton boys, the Welsford boys, and the Northside crew. We take our hosting duties seriously because a lot of people came from some pretty far distances, driving over an hour, in some cases more, like 2 hours. And like I said, we had some lickies and chewies first thing in the morning. We're going to have some burgers and hot dogs midday. There's a beer call down by the river, and chili at the end of the day where we give out some awards for all kinds of silly things, and Colin gives up some prizes. So, you know what? Everybody got a little something that made it to the end of the day. Some people got some things they didn't really want. Lucas and Mike, sorry man. We did kick the day off proper. So some time ago we came up with this idea that we wanted to give a present to one of our friends, someone that's long standing in the community, who has done a lot in terms of building trails and mentoring a lot of riders that are now top riders in our local area. So that's JM, Jean-Marie. And what we did was we got it's not a walking stick, although it is a walking stick, but in his case, it's a pointer stick. Because where we most often see JM during our races is with an old stick broken off a branch or whatever, pointing lines for people to take to get out of the worst of the trouble, or sometimes into the worst of the trouble. It's undecided. I'm not sure how it shakes out. But we circulated that stick to everybody that we knew. Thank you, Al, for making a lot of that out. So a whole bunch of people signed off on that stick, and we were able to present it to JM as a bit of a memento and something that he can use on subsequent races in the future to point out the lines. It is the time of the year where we need to do some trail maintenance. There's going to be some blowdowns this time of the year. We need to get in here with some chainsaws, clear some things up. But essentially what happened there was Lance ate shit and I didn't get it on video. Hey, there's Andy in front of me. If you remember my video from Crab Mountain where 3 of us stayed and partied it up at the end of the race, Andy was one of them. We're still carving our way through the Brookside loop, but we're almost done, and I've shortened it up significantly. It's a lot of bikes, but we've covered about 10K, and we're going to end up back in the pit. And that's where we have mishap number 1. Alright, we're back in the pit and getting hydrated and playing around in the pit, but unfortunately that playing around led Lucas to have a good crash and separate a shoulder.
Right. Well, first hard lesson of the day goes to Lucas, who tried to jump that rock right there. Got busted the fender off, may have broke his shoulder.
We're back on the trail and we're headed over to McLoud Hill. I don't know if this trail, which is really a connector to get us over there, has a name. So if you want to come out and ride with us, do something stupid on this trail, we can get a name for it. I'm not sure who that is in front of me. It might be the plastic assassin, Nick Terry. Could be. Well, there's a fun game. If you see yourself in the camera and you want to note it in the comments down below, note the timestamp and who it is. We've come across the top of McLoud Hill, YZ Kid, past Bear Trap, and now we're at the deer stand and just playing around on the hill.
Oh! You alright?
Up over the back? Or?
No, I just hit the tree. Fell backwards into the tree.
Oh, those ones sketch me out when you lose a little bit of control and you start rolling backwards down the hill, and that's the reason why I cut every branch right to the quick so it's tight against the tree stump. Wouldn't want anyone to impale themselves in the ass or anywhere else, unless you're into that, by accident. So here we're just coming off Golf Ball and we're going to rip quickly over Schooner and then right into Volcano. But before we do that, we're going to have mishap number 2.
You okay?
So Scotty went over the bars, hit a giant boulder, fragmented it into all these smaller pieces that you see because he's hard like Christmas candy, and Christmas candy that's been out for a few years is definitely harder than a rock. Unfortunately, his bike has taken a bit of a hit, and out of abundance of emotional ties to that bike, he's going to package it all up and take it home for the night. In all seriousness though, Scotty's okay. He's been off the bike a few times, and you know what? He never complains about being hurt or anything like that because he is hard as Christmas candy. But there's just a time where you're not feeling it and you really ought to call it, and that's what he does. So we got Scotty picked up and made sure that he was okay to go, and go he did. And now we're just making our way up Volcano. Nope, nobody claimed the struggle bunny, although I'm sure it could have gotten out several times. Right there we had stopped for a bit of beer break. Lance had brought a cooler down by the river and left it the night before, and now we're crossing over to Cloddy Road, and we're going to hit a bunch of our trails over there. I'm not going to say anything here. This is just an epic line, and I really like the look of it in the camera. Oh, hey JM, that's JM in front of me. Glad you came out, man. Really good to see you, and hopefully before the year's out completely, I'll make it down to your neck of the woods and get a ride in on your stuff. Speaking of stuff, this is the extender loop that Lance and I cut out, I think it was last year, and we added to it a bit more this year for the trail that takes you over to Kyion Hill. But man, there's just so much good stuff over here.
Yeah, buddy.
So we're back at part of Horse Loop. At the bottom of that hill is where you saw JM and I kind of go around the trees and head out onto the extender. We looped back because we wanted to play on these hills. And some of the guys that really like hitting the hard stuff and the big steeps find some lines that I would not have identified as a line.
There you go.
So here comes Nick, and he goes to the inside line, which is a no-go for this one because you end up on a great big route and you end up having to push kind of like you ate too much cheese and it's the next morning.
Hit the high line. Yeah.
Alright, here's where we get a little wild. Nick's gonna find a line here that I wouldn't have picked as a line. We moved that tree branch out of the way because that almost pulled Nick off the bike, and Jeremiah's gonna hit it next.
Oh.
And here comes NT. So that step up's pretty intimidating because you're already facing up a pretty steep hill and you gotta get the front end up like you're on Viagra, like that. I don't know what NT was doing there, trying to take out JM? Hard to say. Anyway, we're headed up to the top of Kyion and then down into it, and there's gonna be some antics. The high flyers are trying to figure out the line. Lance is briefing on what he just saw, but I think at this point, Nick Brown's made it up. There's Jeremiah going for his big send. I think he makes it up. And I think one or two others do make it all the way to the top and do it a couple times, which is pretty impressive because this hill, for the most part, has locked us out.
I won't survive, I keep doing it.
Lance makes a good call. So the rest of us got to figure out the alternate line, which is going to be doing some switchbacks. And, well, right in front of me, I think that's JM boiling the bike.
That's a dirty old hill.
Yes, it is. Kyion Hill is going to be a dirty hill for most, and for most of us, we had to switch back our way up and make it to the top, which we did, and we got out of there, only to drop in on the other side, which takes us through a series of little trails, the names of which I've suddenly forgotten. Yep, nope, it's gone. But eventually that brings us into this kind of stream crossing and stream bed area where we got to work our way back up onto the loop. And that will pretty much conclude, short of one other section, which I won't show much of. You've seen it a few times. And then we're going to head over to Cory's place for some well-earned refreshments, hot dogs, and burgers. But before we can get to those refreshments and burgers, we got to get out of here. Now, where the guys are just in the woods, there is a pretty rough section, and it's just exposed route. Not kind of like when you're a flasher and exposing yours. Not like that at all. Just a slippery section, and I'm going to pick an alternate line, which I typically do, that takes me up the stream a little bit more. It's rough, but it's doable. Solid call by Lance, who's leading the merry crew today. I'm not going to show you Noli Nelly, you've seen that a few times, but I will show you the trail that takes us there, only because it's fun and fast. Unless Colin's in front of you, because he tends to pull a crazy Ivan and slam on the brakes and jog left into the woods on some vague trail that he claims is better than this. You're wrong. Colin, you're wrong. This is a fun climb. It's the stairway up to Cory's beer store, and it's kind of loose and scrabbly, and there's this washout here, so you kind of got to jog around and miss what was the main path before it got washed away, and then you got this long climb. So it's kind of technical, and if you lose momentum, you're going to spin tires and have to turn around and try it again. Fortunately though, everyone makes it through clean, and there's no pulling of bikes and no falling down in that ditch that is the washout. This is the second half of the stairway to get up to the beer store, and if you get offline, it's going to be tough. But if you've got an ass like Andy, you're going to have lots of traction over that rear tire, and you're going to be okay. I guess Andy figured I was going to say something snide, so he flicked some rocks at me in anticipation of my rude remarks about his very, very svelte derriere. Lance has said this a few times, and it seems most of the guys have it figured out. Ideally, you buy your house based on where the trails are. If you can ride from your house right onto the trails, you're golden. I have made a mistake in that regard, so I'll try and remedy that with the next house purchase that we have. This is another fun little section that's right by Cory and John's place, and I know this trail has a name, I just can't remember it, but it is a fun little one because you run down this old creek bed and then you get into some good elevations and eventually over to kind of a waterfall area. It's all very fun riding, but it is challenging. It's not a beat-in trail. There is some old double track in here, but some of the other stuff is just kind of rough. And that leads to our final injury of the day, which is a tough one. I want to say it was Mike, and I think he tore his MCL, which was a bit of a challenge to make sure he got out of the woods okay and then back to the trucks. If you go back to that picture of Mike sitting on the cooler with the struggle bunny, you'll note that he has removed his pants. That is not just for the photo, that is a demonstration of extreme forethought that most of us have worked out, because if you go to the hospital wearing your gear, they're going to cut it off. So if you can, remove it before you get to the hospital and save yourself the expense. Man, it's been a really great day. We united the three clans of people from Moncton, Grand Bay, Fredericton. We even brought some folks from St. John and maybe a few others. Nobody from Nova Scotia this year. It's a long haul to come all the way across province. Maybe next year. Well, for sure next year, because I'll be in Nova Scotia and I'll definitely make the trek to come for this ride. But like I said, we're going to wind it up. We're going to head back to Lance's place, have some of that chili that my missus made, and hand out some prizes.